We are honored to have Debbie Holloway join us. Debbie is not only my mentor, but my friend. And I thank her very, very much for coming on here and doing this masterclass with us. If you don't know Debbie, a little bit about Debbie, she has been in real estate 40 plus years. She had a team and she was one of the first ones to sell her team and her business. And she's been a senior coach with Tom Ferry since Tom Ferry has been Tom Ferry, and really built the team coaching program and helped grow that. And she has since retired from Tom Ferry, but she's very much still in our lives. She also founded the Women in Impacting Real Estate group that we have, and anybody is welcome to join that as well. And she's gives her heart and soul into not only women, but all of us and bettering this professional business. So Debbie, I'm going to let you take it away.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. One of the things I am doing now is I've just gotten called back by Tom to train the speakers because I've been training speakers and I actually trained some politicians. None of the ones you would know in how to give a better speech. Clearly, I can think of one or two that could use some help, but I haven't trained them. And one of my clients has now started telling people about it. So I feel I need to say it too. I do training for presenting, how to do better videos, how to do a panel, and have a keynote talk. And so now Tom's brought me back to train speakers for him as well. So I'm excited about that because it's something I enjoy. I want to start today, though, with the conversation around the changing market. I did a talk the other day, and I said to this group in Alabama, what was it? Every day, everywhere, all day long. Do you remember that movie? It was the Academy Award winner for Best Picture. It was about a woman who was challenged and went into another world and had to figure out how to master being bewildered and challenged and all these difficulties. And I said, it reminds me of the last 6 years in real estate. We should write a movie. The last 6 years in real estate has been really awful, in my opinion, and I've been in it 43 years. I mean, you think about COVID and then the interest rates going up, and then, of course, NAR, who's always there to help, went through what they went through, and you wonder, how do we keep doing it? Now you have to make sure you're adding AI to what you're doing, and there's all these things you need to do around marketing and social media. And what I think is we can do all of that or hire somebody to do it. The problem is if you can't talk to somebody, if you don't know how to talk to them, how are you going to get the listing? You have a lot of competition. Is there anyone by a show of hands who says, I have no competition anymore? Of course not. So how do we compete? And I really believe it's one of two things. One, it's simply the words you use. Understanding and using the right words, that matters. If you've not done exactly what to say, we've got a ton of certified trainers. I know Jessica is one. I absolutely recommend you go through that or just get the book. There is a book called The Social Styles Handbook that talks to you about what to say with certain personalities. If you're not understanding the importance of your words, that's where you lose. And I think when you boil all of this down, and I'm going to share my screen, and if anybody wants this PowerPoint when we're done, I'm more than happy to, let me see if this will let me. I'm more than happy to send you the PowerPoint. So let me share this because I believe we are a connector. That's our job. That is really our job. Our job is to connect people to people, people to properties, people to services. How many of you think you're not a connector? Because you are. That's exactly what you are, is a connector. And if you want to be, whoops, let me get this. If you want to be a great connector, there's some things you need to know. First and foremost, if this is going to work for me, hang on. It's not, it may not work. There, this thing keeps, I don't know what you guys are seeing, but it just keeps coming back to me. let's try that again. There. You are a connector of services, like I said, but how do you create a great connection? If you want to create a great connection, there are simply 5 things you need to do, and you need to do them well. Number 1, you need to listen. You need to listen like it's your superpower. If you aren't a good listener, if you're so ready to just jump in and say something before they've finished, you're not a good listener. I can think of a gazillion times when I was a terrible listener. But for some reason, and I think my husband would say I'm a terrible listener right now, but when I'm in front of a client, the most important thing that I can do is listen. Listen and probe. We never ask enough questions. Never assume you know what they're saying, because you typically don't. Secondly, you've got to clarify. I think we don't help ourselves or them if we don't clarify by using sentences like, what I think I hear you saying is, let me be clear that this is what you're referring to. Tell me more about this. There's so many ways to use the words they've said and then take and clarify it. I love, tell me more about that. Whatever they say, I just, I can't stand this house. I have to be out tomorrow. Tell me more about that. Well, I don't have to be out tomorrow. When you probe and they begin to open up, they begin to like you more because you're asking them questions. I was listening to one of my speaking clients today do a podcast with someone. And what I found was it got to the point where it was almost like she was leading the guy on the podcast because he didn't even know how to ask questions and he wasn't asking good questions. Learn some good questions. And I love this one. Tell me the 3 most important things about, and if I've ever coached anybody on this, I use that all the time. Tell me the 3 most important things about selling your home, buying a home, making a move in the next 60 days, or tell me the 2 most important things. But you always want to ask questions and you always want to give options. So when do you want to do this? No. Do you want to do this tomorrow at 4 or would you like to meet tomorrow at 5? When you give them options, it actually relaxes them because when given options, they just feel more secure, more relaxed, and just less stressed. And this whole talk is about how to alleviate, their stress. Thirdly is rapport. If you are unable to build rapport with somebody, that's why you lose. You probably know agents in your market that are the dumbest agents on the planet, but yet they seem to list stuff. And I know you're saying, yeah, but they sleep with their sellers. That's not necessarily true. The reason that they do well is their ability to have rapport. It's really not how much you know. It's how to use what you know. It's how to ask the questions. It's how to build rapport because it's magic when you have it. But if you're not building rapport, find something as you go through their house that you like. There's always something that you can compliment. Building rapport, complimenting their decisions, acknowledging what they've done. That helps build rapport. Next is problem solve. Isn't that what they hire you to do? If all you can say is, I really don't know what to tell you on that one because we think we can't really say something, that's not going to help them or you. You have to be a problem solver. And in every transaction, there's a problem before they begin, during the transaction, and likely after. Be prepared for that. Mastermind the problems. Take a moment and sit down and review the listing appointments or the buyer appointments you've been on. And when they said something to you that you didn't know how to solve. When I started, didn't know anything about construction. So I called up a builder and said, I want to meet you every Friday because that's when you come and pay your contractors. And I want you to tell me everything that's going on in this process. I'm learning about shimming jams, sill plates. I wanted to know all of that so that when I talked to somebody about the construction of a house, I knew what I was talking about. Those kind of things, that's solving the problems that they're going to have. And then lastly, contribute. Your ability to connect starts with your ability to communicate and contribute. If you're not contributing to the process by how you talk to them, by not only what you say, but how you say it, how you build rapport, all of this comes together and it works for you every single time. And I do want to leave time at the end for questions. So if you've got questions, jot them down, because I think this is really critical in this market right now to your success. So how do you communicate with somebody in a way that's going to cause them to want to work with you? Because they've got a lot of options, don't they? You want to be the one they pick. And this is golden. Get into their model of the world. Have you ever talked to someone that is analytical, but yet you're highly expressive? And you just want to look at them and go, could you maybe smile? I mean, it's so subtle, the different personalities, and you have to be a chameleon. You have to take your personality type and you have to move it into their model of the world in order to move them forward and reduce stress. So how do we do that? First of all, there are 4 personality types. This comes from the Social Styles Handbook. And I use this because those of you that have teams, you can take this information and teach them how to use it as well. You can also take this and figure your clients out immediately. I like this. Now, the driver in some personality profiles is called a red or a D. Some of you took a DISC test, and so you were a D. Well, I use driver because when I say driver, you know exactly what that means. When I say D, you may not. Expressive, they're an I or an influencer, and they're a yellow. They are not a yellow. Again, every time somebody writes a new book about personality types, they give the 4 types a different label: an owl, a cricket, an elephant. I don't know why they do that. I think using expressive, immediately you know what that means. And expressives are not yellow unless it's really bright. Amiable, sometimes known as a green or an S. Again, it depends on the shade of green for an amiable. Then analytical. An analytical for some, it's a blue, depending on what book you read, or a C. So for today, we're going to use what I'm sharing with you because I believe using these words are much more descriptive and it's much easier to understand. So let's talk about the driver. I wish I could see all you guys, but who here, if you think you're a driver, write it down. Just write down driver if you think that's what you are. In fact, let's go back to this. You write down what you think you are of these 4 based on what you know or a test you've taken. Driver, expressive, amiable, or analytical. And we'll see how we do by the end. So if you are a driver, here's your favorite colors: red, white, and black. Occasionally you'll wear another color, but it's red, white, or black. Now think of somebody you know that it seems like that's all they wear. My dear, dear, dear friend, Eileen Rivera, red, white, and black. She is a total driver. You would not know it when you initially speak with her, but the colors give her away. She is absolutely a driver. The other thing you want to look for is they start their questions with the word what. What are you going to do for me? Well, what's going to happen next? Well, what can I expect? And everything they do is in bullet points. They are not going to be highly talkative unless it's bullet points. So when I say, tell me the 3 most important things about selling your home, and they come back with price, 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 they're likely a driver because they're not going to elaborate. They don't feel that they need to. By the way, none of these types are bad. God made all of you perfectly, or the universe, or whatever you believe. You're perfect as you are. The goal here is to figure out how someone else is and learn what to say to them to reduce their stress and build rapport. Expressives. Anybody feel like they look like those guys? Expressives, their favorite color? Anything bright. Brighter the better. Bright, bright colors. Lots of bright colors on one particular outfit even. They start their questions with who? Well, who do you know that might be interested in this neighborhood? Who do you know that lives here? Well, who do you know in the community that you know, it's like a big deal in the community that might like my house? When you are at their property, look for like People magazine because they really like that kind of stuff. They start their questions with who. Pictures, videos, emojis, and I'm going to give you some samples in a little bit. That's the stuff they love. If you think you're going to send them a highly detailed spreadsheet, you go right ahead. They will never read it, but you go right ahead and do that, and then you can explain it when you're there because they have no interest in that. None. They're more interested in fun and liveliness and doing things and making quick decisions. Amiable. Amiable's favorite colors. Anything pastel. Anything pastel. With an amiable, they start their questions with the word why. Tell me why this is important. And for them, things are important because of family and or pets. I had a neighbor who had 40 cats. She obviously loved cats. Thank God I never had to sell her house. She was very amiable, very amiable. Why is this important for me to do? Tell me why this is going to work. They love collaboration. If you can use the word let's collaborate, you win. They hate chaos, absolutely hate chaos. So if you are just being overly energetic and really excited and go, 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 they'll kind of back away from you, and maybe permanently, because they can't handle the chaos. They don't want to handle it. And lastly, analyticals. Favorite color for an analytical? Beige, sometimes gray. Now, occasionally you're going to see an analytical in purple. Don't worry, they didn't buy it. Their spouse did, so they're going to wear it because their spouse wants them to, but it's not their thing. They start their questions with how. How much is this? How is this going to work? I had a client that obviously you all probably would know, and she sent me an email and then called me and said, I've got a seller who won't reduce his house and he won't clean it up, and I can't seem to get him to do it. He was analytical. She was diagonally across from that, so she was not an analytical at all. And they were butting heads because she was being who she was and he was being who he is. Well, he's the client, so we have to let him work around his personality. So I helped her draft a letter that addressed things like an analytical would. And within 2 weeks, he reduced the price and cleaned up the house. That's how amazing these techniques are if you use them. You will be shocked at how easy this becomes. Now, with an analytical, everything must be numbered. You don't do something with a dash. It has to be numbered. And by the way, those of you that are analytical have already noticed I missed the period behind number 1 because I wanted to make sure you knew you were analytical. They notice all of that. If those numbers don't have a period behind them, that does not work for them. It's almost like being OCD. They're not. It's just very important that detail is done correctly. So let me just see if I can stop the share a second and ask you all this. What questions do you have so far about personality types? Oh, wait, we've got a chat. Hang on. There we go. Oh, hi, Erin. I didn't know you were on here. Okay, questions you have about personality types or someone you've dealt with that you're trying to figure out what they are. So good so far, I guess. Well, we will keep going. If put it in the chat or somebody let me know if someone's got a question. So let me go back to this. So analytical, driver, amiable, and expressive. Now, here's the interesting part. If you are analytical, under pressure, you actually could become a driver. You could become an amiable. And understand when somebody's buying or selling a home, I don't know, is it a stressful situation or no? Yeah, it's usually a stressful situation. So if somebody's normally an analytical, you need to know that. But if they go amiable in selling their home, you have to slow down your rate of speech. You have to talk about collaboration. And I'll tell you how to work with couples in a second. Let's say you're amiable. When you're under pressure, you could go analytical or expressive. And this is where it can get complicated, but it's really not. An expressive can become amiable or a driver. A driver can become expressive or they can become analytical. Now, the driver, who here thinks they're a driver by raising your hands? A driver is the only personality type that can actually just become more of a driver. And you will know that very quickly. Probably can be the most difficult to deal with, but can also be the most fun to deal with. but it can be challenging. Understanding their personalities can revert under stress. I mean, think about if you're in a relationship, married, whatever, if you've got a significant other, have you ever noticed they do that? My husband is a driver, but when he's under pressure, he studies. So let me see, show of hands. How many of you think that I'm a driver? How many of you think I'm expressive? Amiable? Analytical? Yeah, no. Okay, so I'm an expressive driver. When he goes analytical, I know I have to start talking like a driver, bullet points, because I know he's gone analytical. And if I go all expressive when he's analytical, it does not end well. Not good. So you have to understand the process. And I will tell you, some of you are probably going, well, why do I want to do all this? I'm not sure I really like it. Because this stuff is so simple to master and so easy to change your outcome if you just try it. What I would recommend you do is when we're done today, start with people in your family and close friends and see if you can figure out their personality type without telling them you're doing it. Just see if you can assess that. I'd rather you practice on them than your clients. But once you know this, it can totally change everything for you. So how do they make decisions? I think this is really important. How do they make decisions? When you're, whoops, hang on, did it do it again? Can you all see the screen? Okay, so we all make decisions differently. So work, nope, it's not there. A driver wants a quick sales process. No nonsense, no crap, no lengthy conversations, just the facts. They're very big picture and they will take a risk. And the interesting thing about a driver is they'll take a risk and they'll stick with it if they do. Unlike the expressive, who if they take a risk because they're impulsive or quick, they will regret it immediately. So if you've ever had a client that makes a decision and regrets it in less than 24 hours, they're expressive. You can keep them in the deal. It's just how you work with them. They are people focused. They are feelings based. They don't really need a lot of information. They can be very trusting, but that's an expressive. Now, an amiable, cautious and slow. They want to consult with people that they're close to, and it's good to bring those people in to the equation. They like a sounding board. They may bounce a lot off of you. They don't want to disappoint you. So sometimes they'll hesitate, but want to make a decision so they don't disappoint you. And you have to acknowledge that and make them feel good about whatever their decision is. It's good. You don't want to push them. Just like with an analytical, though. An analytical avoids risks. They're slow to decide. They follow the rules and they focus on facts and details. The thing about an analytical is you think might have dropped you as an agent because you haven't talked to them in 2 weeks. Not true. They're just taking that 2 weeks to research and study. And that's important to them. So you have to understand how someone's personality type is and don't try to force them into being what you want them to be. They're more apt to be a forever client when you let them be who they are and support that and use words and phrases that gets them where you want them to go without feeling as though you've pushed them. Now, drivers and expressives are external decision makers, meaning they want to hear other people's opinions. The expressives will likely take someone else's opinion. The drivers likely won't. It's okay. Just understand they do like input. Analyticals and amiables, they will take input, but they have to internalize it and have time to decide if it's going to work for them. So you have to give those two time to think about it. Analyticals to research it, amiables to get comfortable with it. Really, really important. Analyticals and drivers, they think. You never want to say to a driver, tell me how you feel about this, because they will look at you like you're crazy and go, what? Tell me what you think about this. Tell me what you've been thinking. Let's talk about our thoughts around this process or around this property you're looking at. Think, think, think. Amiables and expressives, how does it feel? You know, you're taking an amiable through a house. Sit them on the sofa, take them to the best room in the house and sit down and go, gosh, how does this make you feel? because the feeling part is what will make the decision for them. They don't need all the facts and figures. It's how it feels. That's how they make decisions. So how do you talk to other personality types? Now you think you know what yours is. How do you talk to them? If I am talking to a driver and I'm not a driver, I have to use phrases like, I know I don't have to tell you, because you don't, they know everything. No offense, drivers. I can be there too. But you want to say, hey, I know I don't have to tell you who's selling the houses in this neighborhood. You may see banana realty signs everywhere. And I know you already know this. The seller, the person that's actually selling the house, is not the person with the sign in the yard. It's likely an agent just like me, as you've already figured out, as you already know. And then say anything you want after it. If there's something they're saying that you know is not right, use one of these and then segue into what you want to say, because using this in the beginning will allow their ears to listen to what you say next. And expressive, well, just be all over the board, all excited. OMG, you're going to love this house. This is just to die for. I know some of you are going, I would never say that in a million years. But if you want the expressive to feel like you're in their model of the world and you get them because they're going to make a feeling decision, these are phrases you can use. And in the Social Styles Handbook, there's many, many more that you can utilize than what I've got here. But I'm just kind of giving you a few basics. With the amiable, let's sit down and chat about that for a bit. Can you see your family, or, can you see your 7 dogs in this house? I mean, look at this yard. So with them, slower collaboration, that kind of thing. Analyticals, everything logically. So logically, let's look at how this floor plan works for your family. Let's create a step-by-step process for selling your home. You know, people that write pages and pages of the process of selling your home, you would give the written version to the analytical. You would give the written version, only not as long, to the amiable, and the two on the other side, the driver expressives, create a video. Let's create a spreadsheet. Analyticals love that. I think our strategy could be or should be. So I'm using words and phrases that relax them in their subconscious, because if you've ever studied neurolinguistics programming is all about getting into their subconscious. That's what this does. So it's pretty stealth. All right, so here's a test. Here's what I want you to do. Tell me, somebody's may have to unmute themselves. What personality type is this? What personality? Oh, analytical. So how do you respond to an analytical? Same way they wrote you. Using the same words. Do you notice he's got 1, 2, 3? If you look through this, expert guidance, clarify, correct the course accordingly. So you go with things like this. Context is crucial. Conducting a detailed inspection. They love that word. Oh, and there's more. Always do something with numbers in it. Always do 3 things for an analytical. They love this. Step by step, logically, strategically, just simply using words like that. Analysis. And guys, if you all want this PowerPoint, I'll send it to all of you. But you can take this and literally hang on to it. And when you get an email from a personality type, look at this before you respond. It's going to tell you their personality. So here's the next one. Anybody want to take a wild guess what personality type that is? Hint.
Expressive.
Yes, look who it's from. Good Timing Gal 39. Oh my gosh. Absolutely. It's an expressive. So how do you respond? Wow, love, love, love. Let's go. Good morning. Emojis. So excited for you. There's no dear so-and-so. There's nothing at the end, just set from your iPhone. That's an expressive. Now tell me this one.
driver.
Absolutely. And you notice you respond, want to see 123 Main Street today need disclosures. Want to see 123 Main Street confirmed disclosures emailed. That is a driver. And you want to make sure that you're very brief. I've seen agents want to respond to a driver with lots of detail, and it usually chases them away because that's not who they are. And then the last one, because there's only one left, the amiable. This would be an amiable email. Very simple. You notice it is an amiable, things like thank you very much and I hope you have a nice day, sincerely. If you don't mind, those are amiable tendencies. So you would respond, thank you for your email. And then you go through the information. What other questions do you have? I'm here to serve you. In fact, if you'd like, that's a perfect one, I can arrange for a private showing of this property. Now, normally you might go, yeah, you want to see it? Let me know. Not with an amiable. What time works best? All the best. Very, very amiable. Pretty simple, right? Now, I talked about the books. I'm going to stop sharing a second because you'll still be able to see this, I think. Who's got questions about what we've discussed?
I have one, Debbie. What happens when you're working with a husband and wife and two different personalities? Do you choose, like, let's say one's a driver and one's an expressive? Do you choose to deal with the driver? Like, how do you decide which personality, or do you just go with typically?
You have to deal with both of them.
Okay.
And I'm glad you asked that, because I always say if it's a driver and an amiable, it's a divorce situation, or an analytical and expressive, it could be a divorce. But when you're dealing with the driver and expressive, it can be fairly easy, because many times you marry someone, if you're an expressive and you marry a driver, you all are just the opposite on the same side. What you want to do is that you want to address the driver in bullet points. And then you can look at the expressive and go, OMG, that's fun, isn't it? Oh my gosh. And then you go, I have a really close driver friend who is so good at this. And she literally can make the expressive feel like they're just having a great time. And she's very bullet point with the driver. And as you go through the presentation, you'll be able to sense who's going to make the decision. Not always, but if you can, just notice that going through. If I'm dealing with an amiable and expressive, if I'm dealing with anybody and an amiable, I might do bullet points for the driver. I might say to the analytical, so let's create a step-by-step process, and then we can collaborate. So I try to combine some of the things together, and the more you do it, it's so easy to do. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've done this, and it was just unbelievable. I used to go on listing appointments back when you had a boombox, guys. And I would go to the appointment and I'd put the boom box on the table and I'd say, now, I'm going to record our presentation today and our conversation. Now, your name and your property address will not be used. However, I use this because there is such a high demand from agents in my company wanting to know how it is that I'm able to list and sell homes so successfully. So this is really for a training for the agents. And you don't mind, do you? Again, if you know all of that stuff, nobody ever said no. So I'd go through my questions. Everyone had a set of questions. That was the entire presentation. I never winged any of it. It had their name at the top. It had all of the questions were the same. The first three, if they said yes to the first three, I pulled out the contract. We were done. If they didn't, I went through the rest of it. There was one, and I got to a question I was going to ask, and she starts doing this like. So I turned it off and I said, yeah. She goes, I wanted to say no to that last question. I'm like, oh, no problem. I'll note that. And then when I turn it back on, when I ask it in, go ahead and say yes, okay? She listed. I mean, we overthink this stuff way too much, in my opinion. We really overthink it. Other questions?
Question. How do you deal with like and I guess this is just us talking. I feel like a lot of times people think that there's something and they're not. That's not really their personality. Does that even matter?
All the time. I can't tell you how many people when I go through this are all drivers. They're not. For some reason, they must think that you should be a driver. I don't understand that. I think whatever you are is perfect, but most people want to say they're drivers. I have a test, the test I can send you. And by the way, all of these other tests that you fill it out, that is such BS, because the feeling to expressive and amiable will answer the questions the way they think they should. The analyticals will overstudy it too much and get it wrong. And then the drivers just think they know everything. So it's really bad for us to fill that out, because you are not who you think you are. I've always said, Jessica knows this, I am a 6-foot tall blonde supermodel that's amiable, and no one else thinks that. That's because that's how we are. So the test that I send out to people, it's the social styles test. You have to send it to 3 people in your business life and 3 people in your personal life. They must be alive and breathing, and they must be human. Other than that, it doesn't matter who they are. But you give it to them. You cannot talk to them about it. I tell people, just email it and say, I'm doing this for my coach. You must pick one and send it to her, or you must pick one and send it back to me. And then what happens, you get it back, and I can look at it and tell you where you're under pressure more and where you're not. And most people are more pressured in their job than at home, but I found a number where it's flipped. And that's how you know who you are, because it's not who you think you are. You are not all drivers.
Is
Only
it important for how important is it for someone to know that about themselves?
Well, the more you know about your own personality, the easier it is for you to know what to do with the personality you're dealing with. Look at it like this. Every one of us is one of these personality types. So that means 25% of the population is just like us. They're going to love us. It also means the other 75% is completely repelled by us because they're not us. So what you have to do is go, okay, I'm good with my 25%. My 25% driver people, I got them. But if I'm dealing with an amiable and I'm a driver, who here thinks they're a driver? If you're dealing with an amiable, here's what you're thinking. Holy crap, would you make a decision? Jesus, you're driving me crazy. Step it up, girlfriend. Make a decision. Come on. You think they're going to want to work with you if you act like that? No, they're going to want to go home and put the sheets over their head and never come out again. Amiables dealing with drivers would rather have a root canal, because drivers can be so over the top strong. So with an amiable dealing with the driver, they've got to project their voice more. They've got to step up, stand up, be strong, and be more bullet pointed. These little things can change your outcome dramatically. And the more you do it, the more you find yourself being able to segue to different personalities when you need to. And it just becomes just secondhand knowledge. Just do it. You just go do it. Same thing with an analytical. An analytical looks at an expressive. Who here's analytical? And when you look at an expressive, you just want to look at them and go, for God's sake, shut up, because you can't stand that talking. An expressive looking at an analytical says, could you smile once? I don't know, try a joke. Have you ever known an analytical that's a comedian? Very few, and I think they're hilarious, but there aren't a lot of them. So by doing this, it's not only helping us relate to people better, it's helping them relax more and understand what you're doing for them, because you're doing it from their model of the world. Does that make sense? Any other questions around that? I would love to take the test. Oh, Erin, you know what I can do? Maybe I could just send all of this to Nazar. Do I send it to Nazar or Christine?
Yeah, I'll have you send it to me.
Shoot me an email. I'll send you the test and I'll send you the PowerPoint so that you all have that to use as a guide. I used to take the one that has the chart with the 4 names, and then under it was simply the words to use that I got out of the book. And then I would post it on the wall in front of me. And as I'm talking to someone, and always in my first conversation on the phone was, tell me the 3 most important things about. Had to do that because that would lead me down the path I felt that would be right. Are you right 100% of the time? No. But I will tell you, it can really change all this stuff we need to do in this business. If you just connect better with people, if you just work on the connection through the personality styles, they're going to be happier, and so will you.
Debbie, how common is it that people are, you know, more than one personality type.
Well, everyone is, except some drivers. Everyone is, and it's, again, it goes around the chart that I sent you. If a driver can be driver analytical or driver expressive, you cannot be a driver amiable. You cannot be an analytical expressive. That's called a personality disorder. So if you're one of those, that's a separate conversation we're going to need to have, because you can't be. It's not possible. So, I used to say it's schizophrenia, but now I know someone that's schizophrenic. It's not, it's just a personality disorder. You can't, it's not possible. So that's why it's important to have others pick which one we are. And you want to give it to people who have worked with you a lot, or obviously close family members, because it's a lot easier. I find it harder to give it to parents and have the parents say what they think we are. It's interesting because I've done this for so many years. So many times the parents will pick their personality. Oh, my daughter is a driver just like me. And I think it's because that parent-child relationship. So I typically don't have people give it to their parents. Now you can, but that one can be skewed a little bit because they see you through a different set of eyes than we do, a different set of glasses. Does that make sense? So you might want to give it to a non-parent, a sister, a brother, a cousin, a really close friend. Other questions?
I had a question in the chat.
Oh,
And I just had an analytical, which I think is analytical, ask me if this is a good house to buy. And I wasn't sure how to answer that. How would you answer an
well,
analytical?
let's role play that. Do you go by Roro?
Yeah,
Okay,
Rochelle.
so Roro, that's a great question. Is this a good house to buy? It depends on a lot of factors. Number one, is it the right location for you? Number two, is it priced in a range that you feel like you can afford? And number three, does it logically work in your life? Now, if you see that person kind of straighten up a little bit and go, well, actually, let me look at, you might have an analytical. But if you say that and they're like, I don't know, they may not be an analytical, but it's one way to find out.
Got it. Okay.
Does that help? Because that's a hard question for any of us to answer. Is this a good house for me?
Right. Because I didn't know what angle they were coming from. And I tried to answer more like I thought he was, which was like more of the analytical kind of driver that he was. But
that question makes me think amiable. I go amiable with that. If somebody says, is this a good house for me? They're looking to collaborate with you. He could be an analytical amiable or vice versa.
got it. Yeah.
And what I would probably do until you know is he one that, does he talk real fast or does he talk slower and more measured?
Fast. Kind of
And he's
fast.
probably not going to be an amiable. And a driver usually doesn't say, well, he could say, is this a good house for me? But then that would really not be because he cares about your opinion. It could be a test. So, and you can't say to somebody, before we work together, fill out this personality test so I can know what you are. You just can't do that. I wish we could, but that's why I think you start with certain questions when you begin to talk with them.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a strategy around purchasing a home? Well, no, I don't have a strategy. We can probably eliminate the top two.
Got it. Okay.
Or just, and if you read the Social Styles Handbook, it will give you way more suggestions than even I've given you. I literally to coaching clients when I coached. Okay, you're asking me a question about an analytical, go read the analytical section and then you tell me if that client's analytical.
Got it.
Look at their texts, look at their emails. That will give you an answer. Other thoughts, hallucinations, questions? We're good.
Think this is so fascinating for all of us, and it's so helpful, and definitely makes you rethink how you even respond in emails, and how you talk to people. So thank you so much, Debbie, for coming on here and doing
My
this.
pleasure.
I am you had me worried, Debbie.
Huh?
I said you had me worried. Before you said that, I was thinking I was driver amiable, so now I don't know what to think.
Well, like I said, if you are, we should have a conversation. But you're probably not. You're not.
Debbie, Debbie, one thing I do is because I'm definitely that really short, like a very little information in my emails. I just get to the point. So I definitely a driver. I think I'm expressive driver. But one thing I do is I'll write my email the way I would, and then I put it into ChatGPT to Phil M. Jones it for. But now I could say for a certain personality, which makes
You actually you can.
Yeah.
So write this as an analytical, write this as an amiable.
Right. Yeah.
Because ChatGPT will understand those words. If you say write this as an I, they're not going to understand that.
Exactly. Yeah, it's helpful.
Yeah.
How do you catch that as a first conversation with somebody and it's a short conversation? So how are you going to catch what type of personality they are?
Well, you may not. You may not. It depends on, give me an example. So let's say you've called me or have I called you when you said it's a short conversation?
Yeah, like usually when we're working with our Zillow calls and stuff like that, it's a pretty short conversation. So we're straight to the point, get to the appointment. What did you like about the area? What did you like about the house? And then from there, I'll confirm everything and I'll give you a call back.
Okay. So what did you like about the area?
Oh, it was, in the right area. This is a great neighborhood. I grew up here.
Oh, so you grew up there. Oh, good for you. Okay. So I would probably not say, what do you like about the area? So what are the two most important things about that area that you liked? Again, I'm trying to get a little bit more out of them. And what was the second thing you say to them?
If there's other homes in the area that they've seen or that they want to see.
Okay, there are other homes available in the area. Some are actively on the market, some are not. Tell me about your interest in something like that. I'm trying to ask it as open-ended as I can to get them to talk more. And then I'm not going to know with those two questions immediately what they are, but I'm going to have a little bit better idea. And then when I get there, what's even better when you meet them, how are they dressed? How do they interact with each other? Did they come with 7 cats in the car? There's a lot of little indications when you get there that will begin to clue you in. And you don't have to decide immediately what they are. You can kind of just walk through. I used to create a list of things that I would ask to each of the 4 personality types. I had like 5 to 6 questions. If I was going to ask a buyer or I'm going to ask a seller. And I'd have those as if I had a checklist for the house, just to remind me in my clipboard as we're going through, because I wanted to try to figure that out quickly. The faster I can build rapport, the faster I'm going to get that client and someone else won't. So you try it. If you think they're responding to you like an analytical, use a couple of analytical words. Have you sat down and created a step-by-step process yet for buying the home? Well, if they're an analytical, they probably already have, and they'll pull it out and show it to you. So I'm going to use questions around that. I'm not even going to walk through the house and ask them what they think or how they feel about the house at this point. I'm going to be asking things that might tell me a personality type. So I would say read the book, create 6 or 7 questions that you have for each type that you would always ask a buyer, but you just say it in their model of the world. Does that make sense? I hope. It's fun. It can be a little challenging in the beginning, but man, once you master this, I mean, how many of, I don't know, some of you may or may not be in our coaching program, but let's take Tom Ferry, for example. Anybody want to guess his personality type?
I would say he's a driver. Clearly he's a driver, but I would say he's probably, so we have driver and not amiable.
Expressive.
Expressive,
Probably.
Driver expressive.
Think he's a driver expressive?
Yeah.
I think he's a
He's not.
driver.
He's not.
Oh.
He never has been. It's funny, his dad, back when he and I both were working for his dad was like, he's analytical. He's not analytical either. He is an expressive, amiable. But the beauty of Tom, as he's practiced this as long as I've practiced this, because we went through this together, and he can actually be any one of those 4 that he needs to be at any given time. And if you will watch him on stage, you will see a little bit of each of those personality types come out. because he knows he has to relate to different personalities, which from a stage is hard to do. But he's actually so good at segueing into what he needs to be in the moment. Now, if he's tired, he may be a little bit more of a driver, but he's expressive, amiable. Oh, you could ask, what did you say, Tammy? Let me pull that up. Oh, yeah. What
Right.
questions would I ask an amiable when looking to buy or sell? 100%. Now, I would say ChatGPT is not always correct, so I would couple that with reading the book. I think it's well worth that book. Buying the book itself, I have it on my phone as well, because sometimes I wanted to just look it up real quick before I went on an appointment, but I would definitely get the book. And if you didn't see that last slide, what everybody is saying, has anybody gotten that book? What everybody is saying. It talks about body language when you're presenting. You know, if you are presenting to someone and their arms are crossed, we all know this. It's not that they're cold, it's that they're resisting you. So you would never ask them to sign a contract if their arms are crossed. And you only have to read the part about what you would see in this box, because honestly, that's what you're seeing across the table from somebody. Just read that part and it'll really help you in presenting. Of course, exactly what to say. I really love Silence Kills. Great book about communication. Really great book. So, other questions, thoughts? Like I said, hallucinations. You all are good. Well, like I said, won't be the easiest thing that you ever did, but once you start trying it out, it will absolutely change your outcome. If you want to have more solid buyers, if you want to have more listings, you got to know how to talk to people. You got to know how to get into their model of the world. I mean, I'd like to think that everybody absolutely loves me, and that's absolutely not true. And that's okay, because I will figure out a way to get into their model of the world and help them make a decision. Because the people you do that for will absolutely be clients for life, because they will say to you, you just really get me. It's amazing how much I feel like you know me already, and you don't, but you just made the choice to get into their model of the world, because it will eliminate stress. So anything else before I let you guys go?
No, thank you so much again, Debbie.
Hey, my pleasure. And I will get with Christina and send her the test and the PowerPoint.
Sounds great.
Thank you guys so much.
Debbie.